Now, I'm going to ask you this question. Why are you here?
The American university system is broken. A college education is considered a necessity if you want to earn a living wage, and yet the price of a 4-year education has skyrocketed over the last 20 years to the point where most students, even from middle-class families, can only finish college by taking on crippling debt. Online distance education and open education initiatives are the best hope we have for democratizing education, for helping to break down the separation between the educational haves and the have-nots. Schools such as MIT, Yale, Berkeley, and Stanford have begun to recognize this and have been putting up lectures and syllabi on the web, and this is an excellent first step. It opens up the classrooms of some of the country's most prestigious schools to anyone with a little motivation and an internet connection. But there's one big problem these programs don't tackle. Online lectures simply don't work. Lectures are a vestigial teaching strategy, from a time when books were prohibitively expensive and rote memorization was the main paradigm for learning. It's a classroom strategy that ought to go the way of recitation and catechisms, and yet it persists. Online lectures don't work because we're reproducing an old approach in a medium that's not well suited to it. Instead, we need to look for new approaches that embrace electronic media's strengths and work around its weaknesses, rather than simply ignoring them. You don't have to watch many lectures online to start to realize that they're a really ineffective tool for teaching. Try it yourself. Go to iTunes U or Academic Earth or any of the many sites that aggregate hundreds of freely available lectures online. You'll see a lot of the same thing over and over. Professors in front of a classroom, professors at a lectern, writing on a whiteboard that you can't even see clearly, or even worse, people who simply posted the audio of a lecture while slowly progressing through painfully dull PowerPoint slides. Why are we subjecting our students to this? Why are we subjecting ourselves to this? Is it because lectures are such a powerful teaching tool that we can't stand to part with them? Not at all. In his 1971 book, What's the Use of Lectures, Donald Bly provided a vast array of quantitative data that suggested just the opposite. A lot of things that we want to do as teachers, lectures do a remarkably poor job at doing. Lectures are less effective than other classroom techniques at motivating students, inspiring interest, encouraging problem solving, and teaching critical thinking. In fact, there's only one thing that lectures do as well as other classroom techniques, and that's the conveying of basic factual information. So why do we keep doing it? Why do we lecture at all? Well, because it's how we were taught. Because the image of the prophet at the podium is still very important to our notions of academia and education. And because sometimes you really do need to ensure the conveyance of basic factual information, and in those cases classroom lectures work. But they just don't work that well when they're online. The old format falls flat in the new medium. Teachers try to simply imitate the experience of the in-person lecture and put it up on the web, but what you get falls far short of even the very limited utility of the classroom lecture. The mistake that people are making is not thinking about the contours and limitations of this new medium. They're not taking the medium into account at all. Every medium comes with its own set of limitations. Movies are projected onto a very large screen in a darkened room. They can demand a lot of your attention. For this reason, you're able to have the breathtaking panoramas and wide shots of a movie like Lawrence of Arabia. Television, especially in its early days when screens were small and speakers were tinny, was more constrained. In order to convey the most information, it had to bring the camera in closer, focusing on medium shots and close-ups. Computer monitors keep getting bigger and bigger, but your students probably aren't watching you in full screen. Your lecture only has a fraction of the screen, a few square inches of real estate. And meanwhile, all around it on the screen are other things competing with it for students' attention. Speaking of which, I wonder what's going on Facebook right now. How can we compete with the constant potential for distraction that the web provides? How can we work with the medium of online video rather than against it? You could do worse than to look at the world of vloggers. Vlogging, short for video blogging, is a relatively new phenomenon, but its best practitioners have learned a lot about how to communicate over online video in a very short time. They've developed a new online video vernacular that differs in some fundamental ways from other forms of video communication. What can we learn from this new native form of talking over video on the internet? You've got to get in people's faces. Just like TV requires medium shots and closer, if you want to get and maintain people's attention online, you need to fill the shot with your face. It conveys intimacy and demands attention. Compare that to the long-distance shots of a professor behind his lecture. Similarly, you've got to bump the energy level up. Watching a few video lectures, you come quickly to realize that there's a lot of wasted time.
Hi, good afternoon. I have no idea how to log into this machine. We'll improvise.
A little wasted time here and there is okay in a classroom where you've got a captive audience, but in an online video it's just dull and it drives your viewer to distraction. Again, look at vloggers. They're full of energy, they gesticulate, they emote, sometimes overly so. They talk fast and they use jump cuts when there's a lag. Follow this example. Don't pause. Speed it up. Force people to keep up with you and they're more likely to stay along for the whole ride. Students giving their first conference presentations and lectures often have to teach themselves to slow down. This is going to be hard, counterintuitive even, but the medium demands a different kind of conversation. The average video lecture clocks in at around an hour, the length of a typical class, but the best vloggers tend to keep their videos to 3 or 4 minutes tops. Guess which video your average student is going to watch and continue to pay attention to until the end. I'm not saying we have to condense an hour of material into 3 minutes to fight students' ridiculously short attention spans. It's just that the hour-long talk is a model that no longer is relevant when you don't have to corral everyone into the same room at the same time. Break down subjects into small, discrete units. All of this probably sounds kind of uncomfortable for a lot of academics. Maybe it all sounds a little bit too theatrical. You'd like to think your ideas stand on their own. But then again, it's hard to think of anything that's more theatrical than standing behind a podium professing. And it's not about coddling students who can't pay attention, it's about showing sensitivity to the demands of a new medium. But just as every medium has its limitations, they each have their unique advantages too. The idea of breaking down lectures into short, discrete units is not just a concession to short attention spans, it's also a way to take advantage of digital media's strongest qualities, the ability to atomize, disaggregate, and reaggregate knowledge. By breaking lectures down into small units, the information you're conveying can be more fully integrated into a cycle of reading, discussion, and contemplation that makes for a rich learning experience. Video streaming sites like Vidler even let you break down your videos into smaller sections, allowing students to backtrack to key sections if they miss something or don't immediately grasp it. Another strong suit of digital video is its ability to be multimedia. Need a video clip or a visual aid? Just cut to it. Need to show someone how to do something tricky on a computer using screen capture software? You can let the entire class look over your shoulder as you do it. The nearly unlimited multimedia possibility of online video is more than just bells and whistles, it's added value. Lectures are basically only good for one thing, conveying factual information. But by working with the medium of online video, rather than ignoring its contours, we may be able to actually develop a more effective system for doing just that. Computer-aided pedagogy is the future. The old university model is simply too cumbersome and too expensive to maintain at its present size. Academics are faced with a decision. It's time to adapt or get out of the way. Traditional lectures may, within a generation, be regarded as a lost art. And as much as I'm against simply slapping videos of classroom lectures up on the web and thinking you're doing something cutting edge, a lot of the lecturers whose images I've used in this video are actually quite good. In the future, the current glut of digitized classroom lecture videos may present historians of education with a fascinating look into the pedagogical strategies of a previous generation. All I'm saying is that, with minimal extra effort, you can go the extra step and make something that really engages students online, because it was meant to be viewed online. If we're dedicated to democratic access to education, we need to be shifting toward more and more distance and open education projects. And if we're going to do that, we might as well start asking ourselves how we can produce the best product we can with the tools available.